Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's my mother recited that rhyme to me because the words of bullies did hurt me. But let's hold that thought. The philosophical idea of the mind-body problem used to be couched this way. My body can easily, how my body affects your body is easy to understand, but mind has this wispy substance called words, meanings, speech, thoughts. How in the world does mind affect another mind? It's very mysterious. So phenomenologists were quick to point out there's a lot of false assumptions in that sort of thinking, because mind, and therefore speech, is not actually disembodied, and the body is not actually disenminded. And the way it works, the reality of everyday experience is that speech is put together by my whole body being, goes right into your body and touches you inside, makes you angry or happy or bored, whatever. So when the upshot of all this is that we can talk of two kinds of bodies we have, so two layers of the body. The one is the physical body, which just does its own thing anyway, and the other body is the psychological body, the emotional body, which is constantly responding to meaning and words and things like that. It's marinated in a marshland of meaning. So when we're talking about hate speech, we need to ask, how does it affect these? It's useful to ask, how does it affect these two bodies? So how does it affect the physical body? By hate speech might potentially incite violence. Violence is an attack directly on my body, or a blocking of nourishment or nurturance to my body, or a poisoning of that nurturance. The way that hate speech affects the psychological body is by offense given that causes me emotional hurt. So let's deal with the physical body first. Normally, if we're in a society that doesn't want physical violence, we try to legislate against it. And we legislate against speech that either intends violence or is likely to incite violence. But here we get into a quagmire that is very hard to get clarity on. Because if you think of words like, I'll kill those bastards, or those guys need a bullet in every one of their heads. You see, the speech implicitly speaks violence, but it might not actually intend violence, and it might not actually lead to the inciting of violence. Whereas there is speech that doesn't speak violence, but actually can intend violence and lead to violence. For instance, speech that talks about inclusion and exclusion. We are it, they are not it, they are not us. So, it's very difficult here, but it's very difficult to come to any clear conclusion. There is one easy thing about all this: physical violence is unacceptable, and that is it. So let's get on to how hate speech affects the psychological body. And here one of the things, just want to talk about freedom, free will, the philosophical idea of free will versus determinism. When you attack my physical body, you are totally free to attack or not to attack. My bodily reaction is not free. It's totally determined by you. If you stab me, shall I not bleed? If you shoot me, shall I not die? I can totally blame, you are totally responsible for what happens to my body, and I can rightfully blame you for that. Okay, so let's get on to the effect on the psychological body. If I were totally free in my reaction, if I could say I can react to you in any way I like, then I can give you total freedom to say what you want to say. But if you are responsible for my emotional reaction of hurt, then it makes some sense to try and block you. So what is the case now? Who is responsible for my emotional hurt? Is it you who are over insensitive, or is it me oversensitive? Is it you who are too offensive, or me is too easily offended? So let's evoke the work of a famous conflict resolution man, Marshall Rosenberg. Many of you will know his system of conflict resolution called nonviolent communication. Now, Marshall Rosenberg says, his basic stance is, I am totally 100% responsible for my emotional reaction. Now, I've read him with a fine-tooth comb, and I've seen in places he sort of slips up on that. He does imply in some places, agree that there are certain average sort of feelings that do, where we can sort of say, you've hurt me. For instance, I'm in love. My partner comes to me and says, I want to leave you. Am I entitled to say, you have hurt me? The reality is that it's over there where I started using the words co-creation and co-responsibility of my emotional reaction. You see, the baby, which is my emotional reaction of hurt, is formed by the intercourse of my neediness on my partner plus her desire to leave me. It's a co-creation. So the question is, what are we left with here? So we're left with three views on what causes my emotional hurt. Either you totally, or we created together, or I alone am responsible for my emotional reaction of hurt. Now over here, you totally, I think there we can help the definition of hate speech, the ingredient that you are responsible for my hurt. I think that's a good ingredient of hate speech. It's like, you people, you make me feel, and sometimes that leads to you leave me no choice. And it's all absolute total rubbish. It's untrue. It's bad, false psychology, and we in our profession know this. So let's look at the other two possibilities. And this is where my mother's telling me the rhyme, she was really saying, she didn't know this, but she was saying, son, your emotional reaction of hurt is a co-creation of the bully's insensitivity and your oversensitivity. But you can overcome this, you can transcend this. You need to learn how. It's a process. And the same with Marshall Rosenberg's idea. It's all very well to say people are totally responsible for their reaction, but this is a process as well. It takes time to learn that. We're not all there. Not everybody has read Marshall Rosenberg. Most people feel hurt by other people and blame other people for that. So what I'd like to say here is that this is actually what we do very well in psychology. So in praise of what we already do, this is what we already contribute to this issue. We teach people to move down this line. We tell people you cannot solely blame another person for your emotions. Secondly, wherever we co-create some emotions together, you need to look at your part in that. And thirdly, you can move towards maturing to being a very mature person who is totally free in his emotional reaction and therefore in his emotional response, and can respond in any way creatively as he likes. So that's in praise of our psychology, and I think we do this well and we should do this more. So next I want to say the other thing is, you can argue that in society there is not really so much free speech. The reason I say this is because there is in society, normal society, a lot that remains unsaid, a lot that is repressed, a lot that is unconscious. Now what we do in our profession is we bring people into a container, and in that container, in fact, and we tell them to speak freely and truly, and in that container sometimes hatred arises. I hate my father for what he did, but all that hate, all the hurt that is based on which the hate is based, gets healed in our container, and therefore out in the outside world, there's no fuel poured on the fire of conflict with his actual father. And that's the sort of stuff we do, and I believe we should do more of, and as much as we can in society. So the other thing is that I think we are not short of free speech in society, we are short of free listening. And we are not short of free hate speech, we are short of compassionate listening. And compassionate listening is what we are really good at in our work. We are so much better at listening than people outside of our psychology society generally. And I think we should develop structures. The trouble is, outside of the therapy situation, we should develop structures where free speech and free listening are put together to create free dialogue. In other words, we should create structures where the offended and the offensive can get together in a confrontation and possible reconciliation, because I don't think legislation will ever work in solving this problem. And by doing this, we will help people who are too sensitive, and we'll teach people who are too insensitive, and bring those two together. So I thank you all for your compassionate listening. Thank you.